Welcome to the Big Screen Symposium podcast. The Big Screen Symposium was held in Auckland at the Victory Events Centre on the 5th and 6th of April 2024. Using Testify as a case study, New Zealand On Air Head of Music Teresa Patterson presents a conversation with music supervisor Amine and producer Philippa Rennie. They discuss forensic examination of a script, budgeting for music placement, and collaboration with key creatives on song choices. This session is presented by New Zealand On Air to encourage more New Zealand music in our screen stories.
Cool. Kia ora koutou, malo lele, ko Teresa Patterson, toka ingoa. I'm Teresa Patterson. As you've heard, I'm the head of music at New Zealand On Air. Welcome to the Music and Screen, a beautiful collision seminar at Big Screen Symposium 2024. We're going to explore the importance of music and screen, what music supervision is, and also some exciting additional information on funding that NZ On Air has available for music budgets in screen. Because, it's important to pay our musicians properly. Before we get into the seminar, I'd like to introduce you to the panel. Well, they're going to introduce themselves. So first up, we have Philippa, Rennie, head of scripted at Warner Brothers.
Kia ora, everyone. Lovely to be here. Excited to speak with you all about our upcoming show, Testify, and the collaboration we had with Amine in the music supervision space. Very grateful to New Zealand On Air for all their support and, hoping that this will be the first of many with boosted music budgets because we think it's really made a huge difference to the storytelling and to the show. So excited to be here.
Great, thanks. And then Amine. For those of you who don't know you, do you want to talk about your background and...
No. But Hi, my name's Amine Raymer. I'm an independent music supervisor. After working in LA in the music supervision space for 15 plus, however many years, I've come back to New Zealand and really excited to be working on New Zealand film and TV projects. Is this when I should say what a supervisor is?
No, not yet.
Later. Okay, yep. And we worked on Testify together, which I think is a great example of how supervision, music and NZ On Air can all work together.
Cool. And then back to me. My background is in music. I've worked in the music industry. Well, I've been at NZ On Air for a couple of years now, but before that I was in the music industry for over 25 years, working at major labels, festivals like the Big Day Out, and a music manager for my sins. But on with this seminar, let's talk a bit about the background to the additional music funding that we've got at NZ On Air. So in 2022, we published a sync licensing report that was conducted by composer, musician, and ex-native tongue publishing consultant Paul McClaney. So there was a recommendation within the report that there should be more alignment between the screen department and the music department at New Zealand On Air, and that we should engage a music supervisor to analyse our music budgets as they come through in the applications. As a result of this, we contracted award-winning music supervisor Amine Raymer to do a trial case study on two of the dramas that we had recently funded back then. So Amine met with the two drama teams, like the producer, the director, the writer, and did a forensic review of what music was actually required, in the script, scene by scene, episode by episode. And then she submitted a recommendation to us on what the music budget should actually be, based on whether the music would be licensed or composed or newly created songs. It was a really, really interesting exercise because, surprise, the budget was quite different to what was in the submitted application. We suspect there's many reasons for this, and we'll get into that a little bit later on in the presentation. But the additional music budget was approved with the caveat that that budget could not be eroded, and also it had to be 80% Aotearoa artists. To have a proper music budget meant both productions were able to contract music supervisors, pay correct music licensing fees, and properly pay the composer. And more great news, this mahi has continued where NZ On Air have begun funding specifically for sync licensing and scripted applications. If you have any more questions about this funding, the people to ask are Kelly, who's in the audience, and Glenn, who's somewhere around today. You could ask some questions now, but I probably couldn't answer them. They are the best people for it. So before we get to our case study, this is the part where you talk about what a music supervisor is.
Music supervision is basically the music supervisor acts as the head of department in film and TV like any other head of department. So in this case, anything related at all to music. So we are like the center, of a bike wheel and all the spokes going out with composer, original music, on-camera clearance, all of that. So what we do is we'll start pre-production. We'll do a script breakdown and assess like what the budget should be based on the expectations. We'll, have original music made, it suggests composers, discuss the aesthetic, and basically, so the creative part is intertwined with music clearance. Music clearance is part of the supervisor's job, but can also be a standalone job. So if you're at the end of an edit and, God forbid, you didn't engage a music supervisor and you're like, oh, we've put these songs in, we need to know how much they cost, that's just strictly music clearance. So they're just asking for a price from the rights holders and telling you what that is and overseeing the licensing process there. That is not a supervisor. It is part of the supervisor's job. So basically, the supervisor is the person that you want to be your head of music, to collaborate with the producer, the director, the editor, everyone, and assess the music needs of any production. So it is not... it shouldn't be an afterthought, because when it is, I think we all have experienced what that is as an afterthought and how screwed you can be if you've got an on camera someone singing and that song gets denied. You don't have that scene anymore. That the supervisor should have been brought on pre-production, all kinds of things. But yeah, basically we are your head of music for any production. So anything and everything, like we could oversee. There's different people in music. The composer, you might have a pre-record, so finding the right place to record it, making sure that there is, a choir director, as in Tina, who we were working with. The producers helped and found that person. So it's like, it's just making sure everything is done. I think that's the short version of a supervisor.
I do want to ask you how you got into it, though, because there's only like about half a dozen music supervisors in New Zealand, which surprised me when I first found out, because it sounds like such a cool job. So yeah, how do you get into music supervision?
So how I don't think there is necessarily a straight path. How I got into it and how most people, I think, should get into it is working underneath another supervisor. So you have, and studying, you need to know publishing, master rights. You need to have a full understanding of the clearance process, but also the creative industry standard terms. But essentially, music relationships with labels, publishers, band managers, artists directly. So most people I know that got into it, I came from, management, never again, booking and that sort of thing. So I'd say these days, yes, in the States, you can take courses at the university level about it and other things, but there's no substitute for on-the-ground experience. And that's quite hard to do, work with another supervisor, especially if there's limited supervisors. So I would say, getting into it, work for another supervisor, study up on copyright law, engage with the music community, filmmakers, producers, directors. But there are the Guild of Music Supervisors in the US has website where it's like it explains what supervision is, or even working any other area in the music industry. I think it all feeds in. That's my best answer for you. Sorry.
Question to both of you, actually, because Philippa, in your application, you actually did have a decent budget for music initially. How important is music in screen productions?
Well, I think what I would say is that music is just about everything. It sets tone, it elevates emotion, it can help you tell the story, obviously. So for me, it's absolutely crucial. The feeling you have when something hits you from a music point of view. So for me, it's hugely important. And so what a thrill to get the chance to really elevate things with this increased music budget that we had. So as you say, I think sometimes people say, oh, why didn't you put more in the application? Well, because we've only got a finite amount of money and we know what we have to deliver. So it's not that there hasn't been a willingness from producers to use music and use commercial music and use it, intentionally. It's just, we're all confined by what we've got. From a budget point of view, we know what our upper limits are. So to go back to your question, it's hugely important. It delivers you so much more than just, what a script can. So the two working in unison are just crucial. We're just thrilled with the opportunity that we've had to showcase such an amazing array of music in this series in particular.
Because unfortunately, when the music budget is constricted, people tend to go for production music versus licensing songs. So, Amine, why is it more important to license songs that suit the scene rather than, defer back to production music or library music?
I mean, I would what Philippa said about elevating the scenes, like, not that there can't be decent production music, but if you've spent all that money on the production and then you've got you're trying to set the tone and you've got weird wah-wah guitars or just unrecognizable, sort of music when they go, even if it's backgrounded in the bar, it takes you out of the scene. It devalues the whole production. So for me, I would, say cut catering. Everyone gets one sandwich, not two. Put that in the music budget. It's gonna pay off a lot more than full tummies for actors, in my opinion. But
I think from a world building point of view, especially a show like Testify that a lot of it is set, the heart of it is K Road. Now, it's baked into the DNA of the show is that we are building this world and we're trying to deliver an authentic view of that world. And at the heart of that is music, right? So to have something from an artist who's, playing at Whammy, who's there, who's in the scene, I think that just really speaks to, a genuine, authentic world building.
And if you didn't, and the show, say, for instance, with Testify or a show like that, and you didn't have that authentic music in there, I think it would be less believable watching it. And so the importance of it, I think, when you're at the outset is huge, because you can't fake that. And especially, hopefully, as New Zealand productions get picked up internationally, an amazing opportunity to showcase the wealth of music talent that we have in New Zealand is, it's unthinkable that you'd have international, music that everyone already knows that's internationally known, not New Zealand music, a wasted opportunity for the whole industry and the country.
I mean, we've seen great examples of that before, like Savage Swing, et cetera. I know that Tammy Nielsen's manager has said that whenever Tammy tours internationally, she always gets fans coming to gigs that have heard her music in Broken Wood Mysteries. So it does create, additional benefits for musicians. Anyway, we should move on to our case study, which is Testify. Testify was one of, surprise, reveal. Testify was one of the New Zealand On Air funded dramas that took part of the trial case. The music budget in the end was around $370, I think it ended up being. And originally in the application, it was $110. So it was, looked on paper like a healthy amount of money. So it was really interesting once you did your forensic review. I love that. I love saying that. That it ended up being that. But before we talk about that, here is the trailer.
We didn't do the music for that, just saying.
No, that's actually interesting because it was one of the questions I asked Amine when we met prior to the session was like, so obviously the music in the trailer was licensed or something that you know, was part of your job. She's like, no, it wasn't. So, but I feel like that's another discussion maybe.
Yes.
So, Amine, what was your process when you first met with Philippa and her team?
It was really great. So it was Philippa and Charlene primarily. So we actually discussed process. Before we even engaged with the creative on the show, we discussed like how music would work, my role within the production. So that was, talking with the director, the producers, and most important, not most importantly, I take that back, equally importantly, the editor to, this was actually a beast. So we had on cameras, we had songs that we needed to have created. So we went through that first once we had the budget, but then it was, okay, once shooting's over and we've got all of that cleared, for post it was, okay, so we've got this scene, because we've done a script breakdown. Music we think will work in this scene, this scene, this scene. The music's going to only come from the music department to the editor, broken down for those scenes, and then sitting with, the editor's going to pick from the options that they think works best, discuss it with the director, and go from there up the chain for notes. But that way, since Philippa and Charlene gave me the authority to actually do that, we didn't have songs showing up that A, weren't New Zealand songs, B, that didn't fit the scene, C, that aesthetically wasn't what was already previously agreed on. So it was a really smooth process. So the director's looking at these options going, I like this one, or in some cases, I don't like any of them, give me some more options. But there was no problems with things happening that were outside the scope. So it was a really great process for me, hopefully for you guys. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it must have been such an interesting exercise for you as well. I mean, you've worked in the industry for many years, and done many programs.
Yeah, and I mean, outside of this work, music lover, soundtracks our life, right? And it's exciting. And I think, it's a trust issue, but we all, television's a team sport and all of that. So you want to work with people that are experts in their field, right? I can think I know about music, and I do, and I have my own preferences, but the beauty of having a music supervisor on board is that they deliver a whole range of other things that you might not otherwise know about. You can't be plugged in, dialed into every little scene. So that's the beauty of working with someone who really is, whose job it is to know what's what, and open our eyes as producers, not as young as we used to be. So it's good to have an access into those other worlds and to speak to the worlds that we're trying to build, to speak to the characters and the stories that we're telling. And as I said before, it's really baked in music. That's how it should be anyway. So no, great process. Both Charlene, producer, and myself, as I say, are in, love music. We're really attuned to it, but nothing like having your eyes opened and introduced to new music to make sure we make the best choices to support the story that we're trying to tell.
And were you surprised about the difference between what you thought the music budget was going to be and what it ended up being?
No, because I've tried to get big songs before. Yeah, I've tried to license, big tracks before, and it's prohibitive, right? Price prohibitive. So, thrilled to get the chance to really explore the depth of talent here in New Zealand and showcase it in a meaningful way.
And I should give a shout out to David Stubbs, the director. Was great collaborative process there as well, where it's, okay, this character, this is what we're thinking they would listen to. They're at this bar, this needs to work. So it was, I think the main thing that made it work is communication. We were all constantly communicating. And if someone had an idea and it wasn't something that I had put in, I'd be like, okay, stand by on that, because I'm going to go research and check everything out about it. So, or say, okay, here's why I don't think that would work, or, yep, great idea, let's put that in. So I think that that's the main thing that seems to maybe be a new thing for here, is having that music person be in those discussions and be, involved all the way along. But yeah, it was super fun.
Here's a blank budget that is one of your budgets, Amine, which we just wanted to show those of you just to see how Amine did break it down. So this was the summary. Is there anything you want to speak to on this?
Yeah, so this was like the summary, and then each episode I did a script breakdown. So
that's for each episode. So
yeah, the summary, and then each episode. And so if something new came up in the episode where someone's like, actually, we want to have this person singing or make something, then these are your basic things to think about. Sometimes there can be more things than that. You can have the choreography and different things in there. So when we were doing, looking at the different budgets, sometimes it was just one line that said music and a number. And I was like, where's all these other things? And so I think this is important, to sort of just things to think about when you are budgeting out any show. And you might not need all of these, but you'll definitely need more than one line on your budget. And especially for the episodes, you need to have that breakdown, because some episodes might cost more than others, and that can affect the production shooting. So it's, again, something to think about.
When is there the situation where you will get an artist to create an original song?
Usually I'll go by the script. So it's like, in this case, we had lots of, not lots, but we had some great opportunities. We had one character that was a singer-songwriter, and so she was singing, trying to get her music career off the ground and singing. So then, rather than having her sing a cover song, we're like, okay, what would this character be singing about? How would that sound? And we were really, I was really lucky. We got Amelia Murray, who you might know as the artist Phaser Days, to write an original song for that character. And then we had the dance group, and it's like, okay, we're going to have them again not have a cover, and we got Masbo Q to write that. And yeah, so it's like basically I think the opportunities across the board for all TV to have an original theme song, that's always fun, because you can really speak to what the project is. And otherwise it's just based on the script. If you've got anyone singing at all on camera, figuring out if it's original or a cover.
Might actually open it up for questions here.
Thanks, Chris. We've got a couple of questions. Stephanie asks, what are the usual license terms, e.g. territory and length of license term?
Oh, I think that's a joint question. I'll open with, it's always safer to go all media excluding theatrical for TV, because you don't need theatrical and that's going to raise your price. Or media excluding theatrical, world perpetuity, because if you are lucky enough to sell it overseas, if you don't have those terms, your whole production that whole thing can fall down until you relicense it. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one.
Okay.
Worldwide and perp, then you don't have to worry about it again.
But yeah, TV, you don't need theatrical. I've seen that before, because you're going to get higher quotes and you don't actually need it. So you'll get some distributors saying they need all media world perpetuity, and not actually like think about the how much that's going to increase your budget if you actually, don't need theatrical.
Great, thank you. And where do music supervisors find the right music for a scene, and how do they know who to contact to license it?
the right music is, I guess, subjective. So it's like the right music according to me, it's in here. But so how do you know who to go to? So
Can I just take a step back on that though? You present options, don't you?
yes, yeah.
So
yeah.
it's not just this is the song for the scene. Here are some options. Yeah.
Yeah, it's you have those discussions with the producer, the director, your whole team about the aesthetic, the tone. And so the right music, you've already narrowed it down. Okay, is this going to be hip hop? Is this going to be rock? This character seems to be into emo, so there's no. So you have those discussions and you narrow down what you're trying to accomplish for that scene. What's the emotion you're trying to convey? So you've had those discussions. So then the supervisor goes off and finds options to present. Finding the rights holders is basically those are the relationships that you have as a music supervisor, publishers, labels, managers, artists directly. So every option that I'm going to put forward, I know where it came from. I know who the rights holders are. I'm not going to put, I love this song, I heard it the other day, and I'm not going to put it forward because it could have 12 samples in it that are not clearable. So then I've wasted everyone's time listening to it. So I guess knowing who to go to, that is the supervisor's job. If they don't, they should not be calling themselves a supervisor.
This is a question for Amine. How important are music supervisors' relationships with different rights holders in the creative and licensing process?
Oh, so so important. If you don't have a good working relationship with labels, publishers, managers, that can affect not only your job, but the production. And yes, there are somewhat standardized pricing for, how long it's used, if it's a featured use, who owns it. But our job is to be fully invested in the production. So we're picking up the phone and calling them and saying, this is why I think this artist should be part of this production. This is the scene. This is why we chose it. Because they then go on to represent everything you've told them to the artist, to the manager, to get it across the line. So if you just say, I've got a 2-minute use, it's in the club and they're dancing, yeah, you're going to get a price back. But if I'm saying, this is a type of club, this is why I chose the music, the character that's dancing to it is their favorite song, that's why they got up and had a dance, and this is why we want it. And I'm going to say, and because I've budgeted it out, this is how much money we have, and we're going to fight to keep it in budget. I'm not waiting for them to give me some, the random price. I'm like, that's the difference, I think, with having a supervisor as opposed to just clearance where they're just saying 1 minute background bar, there you go, send me a number back.
Got it. I've actually got a couple of little questions. First of all, awesome to have that up on the screen. Just really useful. Thank you for that. In terms of above and below the line, does any of that go above the line? Does music supervisor go above the line, or is it all below the line?
It's below.
It's below. We're generally budgeted as part of the post team, but we will be on from production, but we're considered below.
So it's all below the line. Thank you. The second question relates to budget, overall budget. Really interesting to hear that, where Testify landed on its overall music budget and how much it increased. And one wants to get that sorted earlier on. Can you give us an idea of what, because there's this sense of ratio percentage, can you give us an idea of what Testify's budget was and therefore, how much the music as a percentage was?
Around 5%.
Kiara, thanks for that.
But when you work overseas, it's normally you work to 10%, is it?
Yeah, I mean, the rule of thumb is that your music budget should be roughly around 10% of your overall budget. But, with 5% is pretty healthy. So you see a lot of things, around the 10% mark. But I would say you don't see it, 1 and 2%. Sometimes you do, but generally it's, 5 to 10%.
There's another question here. Oh, here's a mic so everyone can hear you.
I just wanted to ask, with licensed music for film, what are you looking at in terms of that budget line per song?
It depends on, is that with a major label, a major publisher? Is that represented by a third party sync agent? And so that you do have to factor that in, because sometimes you're establishing the scene and the tone. And yes, that could be X amount if you're going with a major label and publisher, or it could be a much lower amount and you can still fulfill the creative vision. So there's never a per song thing, because it depends what you need. But you could say, if you're doing a budget, you could say, okay, let's imagine it's a major label and publisher on both sides, and do a guesstimate for how long you think you're going to use it.
And it depends on the artist as well.
Yeah.
Like a song from a more well-known artist is going to cost a lot more than a song from a relatively new artist as well.
And it depends on, that's where the relationships come into play. Some artists of the well-known variety, dicks, and it's just about the money. And so knowing who they are, sorry, it's true though. Knowing who they are, you're like, okay, I'm not going to estimate the same that I would say for Journey or the Rolling Stones versus David Bowie. Like Bowie's estate, like project, yes, there's money. And I'm not saying anything, these are just examples maybe. But they're both on major labels and publishers, but those fees are going to be entirely different. But, stature-wise, I would say they're all really big. Those prices are going to vary.
Sometimes if there's multiple uses as well across the season. So, for example, in Testify, we had 37 commercial tracks, which is kind of mind-blowing. But I think we had, is there four Veils tracks?
Yeah, David, that's our director, was a very big fan.
Big Veils fan.
Yeah.
And so that gives you a bit of leverage as well. And another project just completed, Escaping Utopia, which is obviously a documentary, but we went exclusively with Reb Fountain tracks in that. So that was 4 of her tracks. And then we worked with our composer to create some original as well. So there's a goodwill element there.
So you did an overall deal.
Yeah. So, that makes a difference as well, a volume, yeah.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
I just want to say, firstly, I loved Escaping Utopia. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
It was incredible, sad, but incredible. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. Firstly, actually, with regards to that show, I noticed that there was a lot of there was covers and there was some original songs and that kind of stuff. What does it look like working with an artist where you're doing an original song and the creative crossover, I guess, between the director and producer? Because obviously if you're commissioning a song, you don't want to there to say, okay, go off, and then they come back with a song and then it's not what you want or anything because they've just put in all that work. So what does that look like to make sure that you get exactly the song that you need?
Well, not a straightforward process by any means, but I think when I think it comes back to communication, to the communication between director, producer, composer, and artist. And I think, the conversations that you have before anything's laid down are really important in terms of, what emotions you're trying to convey, what the purpose of the newly created track is, where it's going to sit in the cut. All of those things are crucial, and again comes down to having those conversations, trying to be as upfront and transparent as you can about what you're trying to achieve.
Awesome. And I was just going to quickly ask as well, is there a lot of cases that you guys both have been in where a director has said, come into it and been like, I want this song, this song, this song, and these specific songs that are big or whatever? And how do you navigate that in terms of if there's a specific ask from a big label and there's not the budget for that? Like, what's that conversation look like?
Sometimes I am the dream maker, and sometimes I'm the dream killer. That's how I open that conversation with the director, and that happens all the time. And so I try and get to the root of why they want that song. What is the emotion? What are they trying to achieve with that song? And hopefully they can explain to me why it's that song. And then I'm like, okay, here's the price for that song. We don't have it unless you can find the money somewhere. But here's other options that fulfill that same creative desire. And if it turns out it's because it was their favorite song when they were a kid, then ultimately you can make the argument we're all working to do the best for the production. So it's not, I get you love that song as an individual and you're the director, but this is about the project. But you say it in a much nicer way.
So first up, we've got a clip that features awesome artist Chai. Here we go, hopefully.
I don't glow in the dark. I make people decide if they see me or not. If they see me or not. I don't glow in the dark. I make people decide. Taking shots in the dark. You gon' slip and slide. Don't play it safe, I don't hesitate. Don't hold me back, I'ma handle it. This ain't a match, we so different. I run this way, you just kicking it. Most of the shots that you shoot and you miss. All of the shots I be getting the in. Look at me now and look at my grin. Look at me now and look at my grin. Look at me, look at me, look at me.
Funny thing happened to us at the club last night, right, Eden?
Yeah, funny, weird.
Raised some questions for me. Like, how can anyone be queer and Christian?
Good fucking question, Dana.
Do we need some big old white guy in the sky telling us how to be good, telling us how to behave, telling us how to, well, be?
So talk about how you chose that song for that scene.
That was collaborative again. It was, because I think if I remember correctly, because it was a while back now, the main directive from the director was it had to also be about Vinny making his entrance. So it wasn't just, okay, music in the club that's playing. It also had to have a pacing and work for him. And, it might be a little on the nose with Look at Me, but he was like announcing himself, like, and his presence needed to also correlate with them in the club and dancing. So there were options presented and everyone agreed on that one. That's my memory of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it had that driving forceful, this is where we are, we have landed.
Yeah, so it's
in the club,
Yeah.
we're here, this is the world that we're diving into, this sort of seemingly incongruous pastor arriving into the nightclub. I'm sure we've all been down there in the depths.
yeah. Who hasn't experienced that? Come on.
Exactly. Right. Okay, next clip. Using fruits.
And lady.
Is that us, bro? Let's go get a drink.
Well, amongst other things, this is the church that lobbied hard against same-sex marriage.
You ever dreamt of being at the altar?
Sadly, but only for the bling.
Be free.
Oh, did the lyrics play into that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one's, it's fairly obvious that it's a thematic use of that tune in particular, and it's a joyous, but it's also ominous, I suppose, which is the show.
Yeah, I think that one has to be taken in context once you're watching it and you know the characters. So that's not background at the bar there is a guilty love that with one of the characters. So using because we're not hearing the dialogue as it plays, it's like it's kind of giving you the inner dialogue to one of the characters, as opposed to just like, because that could have been, say, background music in a bar, which wouldn't have given you the extra context for what's going on with one of them.
And I think, you know, from a nerdy technical point of view, how it starts in the previous scene, it's a bridge throwing us into the next scene as well. So it serves a functional purpose as well as a thematic.
And we had excellent editor, Eric.
Yes, Eric. Shout outs to Eric. He did an amazing job. A great sense of the value of music and how it can help you from a storytelling point of view.
Because you were saying that was like a really good exercise for him too, the editor, like to have, go through this process and be presented with the options and to be involved in the process as well.
And he said it saved him so much time so he could focus on the cut.
And then next one, featuring another amazing artist, Proteins of Magic.
Just remember, God's always watching, okay? Take care. See you on Sunday.
你还好吗？发生什么问题了吗？
一切都好，没事。
那今晚打电话过来，爸爸要跟你聊一聊。
Okay.
Hello, cleaner copies. Please call back in 5 minutes. Thank you. 你学习有什么问题吗？
别说了，我只是。
你需要什么吗？需要钱吗？
Mom, why did you become a Christian?
什么 Why do you ask that?
Just wondering.
In church, I was somebody. I was myself. At home, I was just mother and wife. Church, let me be me. Liang,
Sorry to bother you at work, Mom. I love you.
Liang.
Devil clipped your ticket too. Tore my heart out just to find you. Coyote screams where you used to be. I crossed a line to cut you free. Do you hear the voices say? It's a war cry on your birthday. An angel plays a broken flute.
Nice.
You've done a great job.
Yay, that's one of my favourites.
So, talk about your thought process for that song.
Well, it had to be heavy and weighty, and also provide the provide the emotion for what he's feeling and the weight of what he's feeling, and also be able to work through the dialogue with him and his mother, because you have to have enough breaks in the music so that it's not competing with, vocals and all that sort of stuff. So technically it had to be a song that had a long enough instrumental break, but I think it provides how heavy he's feeling. So that was, and we couldn't have another Veils song because we'd run that one dry.
Yeah. It reached our capacity.
Yeah.
Surprised there's no Veils examples in this.
Yes,
I think
These are all episode 2. So if we had,
yeah. And then this is the last clip, and this was the
original.
Yeah, the original that you were talking about that had been especially written for the scene. So Amelia Murray is known by Phaser Days. So yeah.
Take you for a ticket tour through the church grounds, show you around. That'd be cool.
Thanks for helping out.
No, thank you for the drink and thanks for inviting me. This is really cool.
My pleasure, darling. Me and Eden run a podcast. You know, we talk about social issues, the arts.
Cool.
Yeah, can I interview you?
Oh, I'm not that interesting.
I disagree. I mean, you're an avowed church dancer. You can talk about that, talk about your hopes and dreams and things like that.
I don't know.
It'll be easy. I mean, people will love you.
So yes, that is competing with the dialogue, but they're in a pub. So that's, you know, how that would be. But yeah, that was, I thought Amelia would do a good job writing an original song for a character that, you know, writes emotional songs and is at the beginning of her singer-songwriter career. And again, that's, you know, relationships where like you can pick up the phone and make a call and say, hey, are you interested in doing that?
So we'll go back to questions.
Cool. Okay. So, question from Craig: Has these case studies changed the view of sync licensing as a part of career development of musicians at New Zealand On Air?
It definitely has, you know, like we talked about at the beginning of the session, changed the fact that now people can apply for the additional screen funding. I mean, personally, I think that, you know, musicians, it's great that there's additional opportunities for musicians to earn money and get their music synced in high quality dramas that have also been sold internationally, and it will create additional, you know, like it creates income for them in various ways, and but also creates additional opportunities for them. So yeah.
Awesome. Jess asks, does the music supervisor organise the temp music with the editor?
We can do, but I think from the, you know, when you're starting early on, the temp music is also music, from the supervisor. So if someone likes it or everyone likes it, then it stays in. So we try not to put in temp music that is going to just have to come out. But yes, for score, before the composers made everything, like I'll be sending way too many soundtracks once we've all discussed the tone. So yeah, we are involved in the temp music.
Also, just wanted to recognise Carl Stevens' amazing work on the show. He's just brilliant. I'm sure lots of you have worked with him before, but he's outstanding and hugely collaborative and really worked his magic and had his great suggestions as well. He's got an encyclopedic knowledge of across all the genres, so he's he's outstanding.
And so for the original music, we had Carl write additional lyrics for when the character changes, and he was really involved with the making of the original songs, even if it wasn't him. So yes, I can't believe we didn't bring up Carl till now. Carl was essential as the composer for that tone and all of the discussions, but especially like say for the songs, for him to know what that tone of the song is, for him to then create the music going into the next scene. Like, so his job's easier and my job's easier if the composer and the supervisor are in constant, as we were, communication.
Another one, how important is music in your marketing? Trailer, socials, TikTok, etc. And how complicated is it to plan or price that?
Over to you, Philippa.
Well, yeah, I mean, everything's not, there comes a time when you have to hand your babies over to the network who will use their own discretion on those things. So it's a balancing act. And of course, everything's not always necessarily cleared for promo as well. So those are additional costs often. Yeah.
What was the percentage shortfall for music funding in the case study?
Originally, it was 110,000 in the budget, and there was an additional $250,000 funded around. Yeah. So the total, I think the total budget was 370 in the end.
But yeah, the other case study, the original amount was 60,000. So that was a huge shortfall.
Yeah, and I think that was funded in another additional $250,000.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. Yeah.
How do you scope music budgetary needs at funding application phase when these elements don't become totally clear until post-production?
I would say they are somewhat clear if you are doing the script breakdown. So if you're figuring out the budget, so yes, you might have additional costs in post, but you should be able to, make an educated guess at that from your script.
Use that fabulous budget spreadsheet that we had up there before.
Can you speak to whether the experience with Testify is similar or different with documentary filmmaking?
Look, it's a very different scenario. We didn't use a music supervisor on our documentary. That was very much a team effort between the directors and myself. And so that was a different scenario. But, what we felt was that we had used a range of music within that because we were trying to achieve a specific tone. So we had Reb, we had Marlon, we had Aldous really going for a specific vibe. But ultimately the decision was made to stick with one artist. And then, we were just bold and brave and asked her if she wanted to jam with us. And with our composer, Andrew Cogan, who did a fabulous job, shout out to him. He's LA-based, but so it wasn't a completely uncomplicated process because he was LA-based, but was excited at the opportunity to work in a different way. So it was slightly different, smaller budgets on documentaries, obviously.
But you would have been acting by default supervisor. Your role would have incorporated, you were acting as the supervisor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I suppose so.
You did have a supervisor. It was a deep side.
Yes. But, no, I mean, it's an absolute thrill. It's an absolute thrill to do that.
Did you do that after you had worked with Amine on Testify?
Yes.
So, right. So there was, you learnt the new process of doing it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
So, you were the de facto supervisor.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I'll just add that to my bow.
Yeah.
Couple of Testify questions. Do you need to reveal the content of the show to the artist? I'm thinking
my God,
Christian artist versus...
Yes. Because if your scene description and you are not forthcoming with that, and then the show comes out, that could be considered a breach of copyright. That could be, that can be a real issue. So yes, you absolutely... the way I describe something is obviously from my point of view, like showing the tension between the church and other communities, like how I'm going to say it, but it has to be on point. And in fact, we did, I didn't tell you this, we did get turned down for the content of the show and not the price on a song. And so, you definitely...
Let me guess what you're saying.
Was
was it a hotel room scene by any chance?
No, it wasn't. It was
Given the religious themes of the content covered today, how tricky is it to utilise common hymns and gospel in terms of rights navigation?
Free. It's free. No, lots of it is free. A lot of it is free. It's out of copyright, especially old.
Yes.
Old songs. And so that's a good opportunity to do something different with them, give them a slightly different slant.
Thank you all for coming along. Thank so much to Philippa and Amine for your time and for giving all your great experience, teaching us all about music supervision and letting us use Testify as the case study.
Thanks for the money for the show.
The Big Screen Symposium 2024 was presented by Script to Screen. We gratefully thank our event partners, the New Zealand Film Commission, Images and Sound, New Zealand On Air, and Te Mangai Paho. Voiceover is by Jamie Irvine and the music is by Poddington Bear. You can read more about these speakers at our website, www.bigscreensymposium.com. This podcast is brought to you thanks to generous support from Images and Sound.